All right, let me ask you this: if you got the pen again to write a budget,
Yeah.
and you were asked by the powers that be, we need to cut on the discretionary side X millions of dollars just off the bat. We need to find some illustrative things to show the American people we're serious about this. Could you come up with 10 things that I'm not saying they have to add up to a ton, but
we came up with 10,000 things, but there's an easier answer to your question, which is everybody deals with a penny less next year. Everybody, including the Defense Department. You got $100 last year, you get $99 this year. Figure out how to do that. And when the leaders come in, including the generals, and say, we can't do it, you fire them and find somebody who can. I had a conversation with James Mattis early in 2017 about the Defense Department budget. And the president and I were negotiating on what the top line defense spending would be. And the president wanted a bigger number than I wanted, which is fine. He is the president. And I said, well, Mr. President, look, what if we do a deal where we do what you've done, but we take your higher number, but we give the military an incentive to save money. And if they spend less, they can actually have some of that to spend on other projects that they like, an efficiency bonus, so to speak.
Whoa!
Yeah, okay. And the Mattis came in and said, well, Mick, this is a very interesting thing. Now, look, we've talked about efficiencies and so forth. Now, last year, you've got a 2% goal in there for us for efficiency. Now, last year, our goal on efficiency was 1%, and we couldn't hit it. But this year, I'm really satisfied that I think we've got a chance to hit our budget this year, our targets on efficiency. And I said, Jim, what's your target for efficiencies this year? He said, our target for efficiencies this year is 0. And I think we can hit that.
We know how much waste is there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But look, the military's never had to do it less. So if you've been in the military for 40 years and you've never had to do it less, you're not going to know how to do it. It's going to take really, really strong leadership. It's going to take voters who say that's what they want to do. Listen, I don't want to beat up on the Defense Department. It is 1/2 of the discretionary budget. So if you want to look to save money, why do you rob banks? That's where the money is.
Right, but I would argue that, look, we have a 285 fleet Navy. We're well below 300. The Chinese Army is going up. If I'm going to spend something, I'll spend it protecting my freedom. But I agree with you that doesn't mean you spend it willy-nilly and keep propping up ships that won't ever, go to sea again.
Right. Look, there's only 2 things that the government has to do. Believe it or not. Do you know what they are? In the Constitution, there's 2 things.
Interest on the debt.
No.
That's maintain an army and a navy.
Defend the nation and deliver the mail. That's the 2 things that it actually has to. There's a bunch of other stuff it can do it in Article 1, Section 8. But generally speaking, yes, you have to defend the nation. I'm not making the point. I'm not saying we shouldn't defend the nation. I'm just saying, look, can you be better at it? Can you be more efficient at it? Is the number of ships really the right measure, or is it your ability to project power overseas and do missiles and satellites make up for a lack of ships? Are we fighting the last war? Are we still fighting World War II in Vietnam? And our adversaries are looking at fighting the next war in space and encrypt and cyber and so forth. Those are discussions that you have to have, and those are discussions that oftentimes take place when there's fiscal pressure, when you're forced to make decisions. And again, I don't want to beat up on the military. That's not the point of this conversation.
I know.
You could have this about every particular agency. It's just it is such a big chunk of what we spend on the discretionary budget.
All right, I want to move to entitlements. But before I do that, there was an interesting anecdote that your former deputy, Russ Vought, the incoming OMB director,
great guy,
made on another podcast that I want to just ask you about. He was basically saying, let's say that we in the executive find an agency and we say, wow, we can make reductions in that agency or we can eliminate it. He said, based on a ruling, because if Congress appropriates money, we cannot not spend it.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Oh, no, that's it. There's a specific, and by the way, I'm a huge Russ Vought fan. He's going to be great at OMB. OMB is Doge without the name, right? Doge doesn't exist. It's a PR campaign. The guys that are actually going to do the work are OMB, and they're going to be really good at it. Russ, I can't say highly enough about him, and Dan Bishop, a former congressman who's now his deputy. But back in 2017, a specific example, we proposed a reduction in spending at the Department of State. I can't remember how many employees Department of State has. Let's say, for sake of this discussion, it's 40,000 people. And we said, you know what? They don't need 40,000 people. They can run it with 35. So let's write a budget that assumes they have 35,000 people. When it got to Congress, There was a Republican senator on the Foreign Affairs Committee who essentially went in and in the appropriations bill mandated that the State Department employ 40,000 people. Literally tied the hands of the Trump administration so that we couldn't do what we wanted to do. And what Russ was probably talking about was impoundment, which is whether or not the president is obligated to spend the money that Congress says he has to spend. It's a fascinating area of law. I'm very much looking forward to impoundment fight in the coming days. No one will be better at it than Donald Trump and Russ Vought. But yeah, right now, Congress essentially takes the position, if we tell the president he has to spend it, he must spend it.
So like the last month of the year, the last couple of weeks, when I was on active duty, I mean, those guys, it's like whatever's left in your budget, it's
spend it, baby. Use it or lose it.
Use it. Yep. Yeah. How ridiculous. I mean, that's insane. Use it or lose it. Spend away. You get no incentive to save it.
I had an Air Force base in my district when I was in Congress. Guys used to tell me, look, I got told to go up today and dump fuel. Fly up, dump fuel, land, reload, fly up, dump fuel, land, to do it again. Because if we don't spend our whole fuel budget for the year, we don't get it again for next year.
This is insane.
Yeah.
All right.
Look at me. I'm 27 years old. Look what working for the federal government has done for me for a while.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a joke, Sean. That's a joke.
I know. I also just think it's so backwards in terms of principle. Like we're a free market capitalistic society, and yet we employ this government that's almost like communist in its spending. It's, we can't save money. We must spend. We must take more. Let's move to the other side of the aisle. You mentioned robbing banks, where the money is. This is where the real money is. Again, let's walk through what makes up entitlement spending and what the drivers of the deficit are within that.
Well, by the way, it's a really interesting turn of phrase, because every time, and the gentleman who wrote the piece in the Wall Street Journal said, the real problem with our deficits is mandatory spending. Sean, do you know how much of the $36 trillion debt, give me a percentage, within 5%, the $36 trillion in debt, how much of that is attributable to Social Security today?
God, I feel like it's a trick question.
It is a trick question. The answer is zero. None.
Zero.
But Social Security is not allowed to go into debt.
Right.
Social Security it can't go into debt.
But isn't it full of IOUs?
Yeah, but the IOUs are to the government. So it's the government debt. They've been lending money to the government. It's the government spending that drives that debt, not the spending within Social Security. Social Security is actually still has a trust fund. The trust fund still exists. It's a locked cabinet in West Virginia. I've seen it before. We can do a whole show on Social Security.
There's really it's like Al Gore. There's really a lockbox.
Just a lockbox. Yes. Sorry, that's my Donald Trump doing my Al Gore. I apologize for that. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lockbox in West Virginia full of T-bills and stuff. But look, mandatory spending is a big deal. There's no question about it. It's this looming deficit. Keep in mind, Social Security, the trust fund is empty in about 12 years. When that happens, then they're only allowed to spend what they take in on a regular basis, which they're taking in about 80% of what they need right now, which means the day I turn 65, I'll only get about 80% of my benefits unless something changes. That's real. Medicare right now is a huge drag on the deficit. Medicaid is a large drag on the deficit and so forth. These are huge things. They are fixable. Donald Trump, by the way, proposed in the budget of 2018 the largest mandatory reduction in history, and did not touch old age retirement with Social Security, and did not touch what we call mainline Medicare, the medical coverage you get when you turn 65. What a lot of people don't realize is that over the course of the last 2 generations, these funds, Medicare and Social Security primarily, turn into these huge pots of money. And Sean, you know what happens when there's a huge pot of money just sitting around in Washington, D.C. It gets spent. And so for right now, when you pay, a lot of folks don't know this, you may not know this, when you pay your payroll tax every single week and you pay Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, you're paying for something called Social Security disability, which has nothing to do with old age. And you also pay for medical school tuition supplements. To help people go to medical school out of your Medicare taxes. Folks don't know that. That's not what they think Medicare is. It's not what they think Social Security is. And we tried to reform those in Donald Trump's programs, budget, and everybody on the Hill, including Democrats and Republicans.
So is it financial aid for med students?
Yeah, part of Medicare. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And that was our point and we try to drive that home. Look, there's so much you can do to save money in Medicare and not deny a single person health care coverage. There's so much you can do in Social Security and not deny anybody the benefits when they turn 62 or 65 or 67. But it's so easy to demagogue. You know, I mean, you hear it all the time. Oh, they're coming after Social Security. Okay. Technically, that's correct. We're not coming after the part of the Social Security you care about, but yes, we're coming after Social Security. They want to change Social Security as we know it. Yeah, that's right, but it's not the part you think you know. It's the stuff you don't know about.
Okay, so let's just say hypothetically, in any one of these programs, you can find efficiencies, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we can start to, I remember back a few years ago, they started requiring direct deposit, okay? I'm sure that saved, who knows, not a ton, but some money. On a bipartisan basis, you go to members of the other party and say, guys, we can extend the solvency of this program by doing these 5 reforms. Is their answer immediately to demagogue you, or do they buy into, hey, it actually looks good if we're extending the solvency of these programs, so I'll join with you?
Yeah, it depends on how close you are to an election and who you're dealing with. Social Security is relatively easy to fix in terms of a mathematical, I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about math. Because Social Security is a defined contribution, defined benefit plan. And when you deal with the tens and hundreds of millions of people, it becomes fairly easy to project. It's the actuarial sort of analysis you do on any insurance program. And we know how much money is coming in, we know how much money is going out. And so there's a way to fix that by changing some of the levers. Do the taxes go up? Does the cap go away? Do the ages change? Do the benefits get limited if you make a bunch of money? Donald Trump has said many times he doesn't need Social Security. There's ways to tweak the system to make the system viable and liquid again. Politically very difficult, mathematically relatively easy. Medicare is entirely different because Medicare is a defined contribution, undefined, unlimited benefit program. You pay your Medicare taxes, and if you turn 77 and you qualify for a hip replacement, you get it regardless of how much it costs. And that is a much more difficult program to fix mathematically. My point is that we can't fix the thing about the penny over on the discretionary budget. We can't fix the 1 cent across, not making pennies anymore. We can't fix the getting rid of the waste within the Department of Education. If we can't do that, how are we going to fix Social Security and Medicare? That's part of my concern with Washington these days is that they keep talking about, we need to fix entitlements. Well, if you can't fix the easy stuff, how are you going to fix the hard stuff?
So, I mean, as we begin this new year, I mean,
is there any hope? It's a very cheerful start to 2020.
No, but I think it's context. We're going to have these fights. I think people need to understand what we're up against. But is there any hope? Is there a sense ever of, hey, let's actually get our act together, do our job, be serious, and try to save the future? Or is that, to your point about elections, it's like, screw it, that's somebody else's problem?
I'll give you the cynical answer, then I'll give you the hopeful answer. My cynical answer is no, it doesn't change. Washington doesn't lead, it follows, it does what the voters want, etc. And it very rarely fixes things before they are broken. We fix things we react, we are not proactive in Washington, D.C., and that's the cynical answer. So my cynical answer is no, it won't get fixed. Medicare won't get fixed until it runs out of dough. Social Security won't get fixed until people realize they got less money coming in. And the deficit won't get fixed until there's a failed Treasury issue or something like that that's an economic shock. If I wanted to be more hopeful, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have done something that I tried desperately to do, but they're smarter and better at this than I am, which is they've made this a cause now. They've made it sexy. They've made it interesting to people. Ordinary folks now care much more about the deficit and about government efficiencies than they did when I was trying to pitch this to Donald Trump. I used to call it civil service reform, for example. What a terrible name. I was no good at the PR part of it, the selling part of it. If now Vivek and Elon and Trump can sort of get the public behind these changes, the necessary changes, then there's the chance for the first time in my lifetime of actually doing something about it.
You know, it's like that great phrase from the movie Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. Well, look, Mick, I can't thank you enough for giving us this primer on the budget, because I think not only do we need to know where we're at right now budget-wise, but the challenges that we face. So I appreciate the time. And I feel like I've just gotten college credit for this. But I wish you and your family all the best in 2025. And hopefully there really is a chance. Thank you for being with us.
Happy New Year, my friend. I'll see you soon.
You bet.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.